As of now, we're being told these are just young protesters on the streets without any political affiliation, but you're seeing hundreds of them on the streets there leading up to the Nepal Prime Minister's office. This after a huge ban was announced by the Nepal Prime Minister on social media sites, which these protesters have not taken lightly, of course, taking to the streets there. Violence breaking out, some of them even attempting to enter Parliament. We'll try and get you more voices from the ground there in Kathmandu. Have these protests also gone beyond Kathmandu at this point is a question we have for our reporters who will be joining us shortly. Ravi Dhani is still with us on the phone line. Ravi ji, ये खाली काठमांडू में हो रहा है कि अलग-अलग cities में भी हो रहा है protests?
जी जी, ये काठमांडू, इसका प्रोग्राम तो आंदोलन जो कल तक इनका बताना था तो ये काठमांडू में था, लेकिन अभी ये खबर आया है ये उधर आपके मतलब ईस्ट साइड में, वेस्ट साइड में, मतलब मेन काठमांडू जो नेपाल के मेन सिटी है, नेपालगंज में इसका आंदोलन चल रहा है, बुटवल में इसका आंदोलन चल रहा है, झापा में इसका आंदोलन दिख रहा है और उधर दांग में आंदोलन दिख रहा है, लेकिन जगह जगह पे आंदोलन अभी दिख रहा है, वो मतलब बड़ी बड़ी सिटी में, न कि काठमांडू। उनका यही मांग है, वो मतलब भ्रष्टाचार और सोशल मीडिया बंद, इनका आक्रोश ये आ रहा है। इनका लीडर भी कौन है ये अभी तक क्लियर नहीं है।
Gee, so some uncertainty there over who's really leading these protests, according to Ravi. But he's also told us that a curfew has been imposed in the area after massive violence also breaking out. We have details coming in from Kathmandu of how you have protesters taking on the government there after they've clamped down on social media sites. Young protesters opposing corruption and a ban on social media platforms broke out into a restricted area in Kathmandu near the Prime Minister's office. The police had set up barricades, is what we're being told, to demarcate the area, but protesters pushed through and also damaged these barricades. The police responded with water cannons and tear gas canisters to control the crowd. Protesters clashed with officers, throwing tree branches and water bottles at them. They were chanting slogans which were anti-government. Some of the protesters also attempted to enter the Parliament building in that area, but they were pushed out, after which there was a huge face-off also, we're being told, between police officials and the protesters on the ground. According to Ravi, a senior journalist in Kathmandu, there have been scores of injuries and perhaps a casualty. We're waiting for word from the authorities on whether there has been a casualty due to the face-off in Kathmandu there. But dramatic scenes coming in from Kathmandu on your screens there. You have protesters running away from the police. You can see the water cannon also being aimed at them. Highly dramatic shots, Ghazali, that we're seeing from Kathmandu there. Full frame on our screens there. Very dramatic. You're seeing scores, hundreds rather, of protesters taking on the authorities.
Violent scenes there. What we are being told right now is that all these young protesters, what they call themselves Gen Z, they are out not just in Kathmandu but at different locations in Nepal. We also heard Nepal's Prime Minister addressing there, but it doesn't look like that his words were convincing enough that these young protesters will call off their agitation. There is not just one issue of corruption against which they are protesting, but there are multiple issues which has got these people out on the street. One about nepotism in government system, that how people affiliated to all the government families are given jobs, why there is higher number of migration from Nepal, why Nepal's citizens are moving outside Nepal for hunting for jobs to other locations. And this group is also very active in terms of its mobilization on social media, and perhaps that is why the Prime Minister of the government of Nepal had also ordered banning all these social media platforms in Nepal, which has yet again kind of escalated the situation in Nepal. They tried to enter into the parliament there, as the senior journalist from Nepal was reporting that there were shots were fired to disperse the mob, and perhaps many people are injured as well. We can see through the visuals that perhaps all these people are still out on the street. There is complete chaos. The police is trying to disperse the mob, but they are as many in numbers and are at different locations, not just close to the residence of the Prime Minister of Nepal, but many people have gathered at different locations.
Back to you, I believe, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Bhadra Sharma, senior journalist journalist from Kathmandu, is now joining me on the phone line. Mr. Sharma, thank you so much for speaking with NDTV 24/7. Violent scenes, dramatic scenes that we're seeing on the roads leading up to the Prime Minister's office in Kathmandu. Tell us what's going on the ground. What details can you share?
Actually, these protests are happening outside the Parliament House, not the Prime Minister's house. Be correct on that. And thousands of protesters, mostly the youngsters, some of them in the school dress, were assembled here early in the morning, and they came to the Parliament House. They broke the barricades and tried to enter into the Parliament. Then the clashes began between the police and the protesters. Police was forced to, fire the rubber bullets at the protesters, and it's been reported that one of the protesters has died at the hospital, and two journalists covering the protest, they are injured in bullet firing, the rubber bullet firing.
Mr. Sharma, can you tell us why this is happening? We believe it's because of the clampdown that has been proposed by the Nepal government on social media sites, but also we're being told that these protesters have also been protesting against corruption in the country.
Basically, two things. They were, frustrated by the rising corruption in the country. And the second thing is the ban on the social media platforms. This was the recent government move. Frustrated by these two things, these youngsters, they were, posting the photos and videos against the politicians and their children. And this movement or the protest led by the youngsters called Generation Z, they were posting this sort of content on TikTok mostly, because rest of the social media platforms and the websites were banned last week. And all of a sudden they decided to call a nationwide protest against these two things: one, the corruption, and another, the ban on social media platforms. This was not expected that the thousands of protesters came outside the Kathmandu Parliament, and the youth all over the country, in all major cities, they've been protesting against the government. And in Kathmandu right now it's under curfew. The security personnel are heavily mobilized here.
Mr. Sharma, what support are these protesters getting from political parties, from celebrities? Any support at all?
Yeah, basically some opposition parties and some popular faces, semi artists, they actually back the protest. For example, the Kathmandu Mayor Balensa is an independent candidate. He was an independent candidate in 2020 local election. He also supported the protesters. He also provided the water and all those things to the protesters this morning. Other celebrities were also backing those protests.
Mr. Sharma, we believe that the army has also been deployed in the area. What details can you give us on that? Can you confirm that for us?
That's been reported in media, but right now I'm away from that protest area and I cannot tell that. Some media reported army also been mobilized on the ground, but that area is now under curfew. I'm not there right now.
Mr. Sharma, let's just take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. What could this mean for the Prime Minister? He's facing the heat over a decision which seems to be rather unpopular in the country.
No, basically these protesters, they are, bending eye against the Prime Minister and other ruling leaders. And they were much frustrated with their social media, suspended this week.
And has that happened already, or are we expecting it in the coming days, sir?
There are some reports that are not just the youngsters, some other forces were also involved, just to provoke the protest. That's some of the protesters claiming, and I cannot say anything about what happens in the future.
All right, thank you for joining us on the phone line there. But you can see those drone shots also coming in from Kathmandu. Very, very effective shots coming in to show rather the show of strength on the ground there in Kathmandu. Violent protests, water cannons being used. We believe more than 100 people have been injured. There has been a casualty, according to media reports, also due to the protests and the face-off with the police. There are also media reports that even Mr. Sharma is saying of the army being deployed in the area. High tensions in the area at this point, but it's all because of the alleged corruption, the youth say, in the country, as well as a clampdown on more than 20 social media sites, because of which they are taking to the streets. Yes, there is support from celebrities as well as some others that the protesters have as of now, but they did try and storm into Parliament. They were stalled there. There have been water cannons used. You can also see the barricades, huge heavy barricades that have been deployed in the area. You see the police officials on one side and the protesters on the other. We're also being told that these protesters tried to break the barricades and go through, which has led to more of violence between the two sides. Ghazali, when we spoke about 30 minutes back when we broke this story, we saw scores of protesters. Now we're seeing thousands. This is a huge protest that we're seeing in Kathmandu.
Perhaps a nameless or faceless group of students could come up with such number, or their call will be having such a support on the ground. And perhaps it appears now that the entire series of orders by the government, allegations of corruption, then banning social media platforms in the country, and it has mobilized a lot of people, a lot of young protesters on the street right now. And the senior colleague from Nepal was also suggesting that perhaps the police has used force. They had to fire at the protesters when they were entering into the National Parliament to disperse the mob. That also may have aggravated the situation on the ground, and that is why the social media, since that has been...
Yes, just do stay with me, because I have Beena Sinha, also senior journalist, joining me on the phone line. What can you tell us about the situation right now?
हाँ हेलो,
Beena, can you hear me?
हाँ, सिचुएशन ठीक नहीं है। अभी एक प्रदर्शनकारी युवक की मौत भी हो गई है पुलिस की गोली से, और 100 से ज्यादा लोग युवा सब घायल हैं। और जो जहाँ प्रदर्शन हो रहा है वहीं के सिविल हॉस्पिटल में इन लोगों को ले जाया गया है। 3 पत्रकार को भी गोली लगी है। हजारों की संख्या में भी।
जी वीना जी, अभी पार्लियामेंट के सामने क्या हो रहा है? व्हाट डिटेल्स कैन यू गिव अस व्हाट इज हैपनिंग आउटसाइड पार्लियामेंट राइट नाउ? हमें ये बताया गया है कि बहुत लोग इंजर्ड, घायल है, एक यूथ की मौत भी हो गई है। टेंशन्स अभी भी बहुत हाई है काठमांडू में, और क्या डिटेल्स दे सकते हैं आप हमें?
हाँ, ये प्रदर्शन में जो हमारा संघीय संसद है उसी के सामने हो रही थी, जबकि वहाँ पर जाने की मनाही थी। फिर भी युवा लोग गए थे, प्रदर्शन कर रहे थे, हजारों की संख्या में गए थे। तो पुलिस ने गोली चलाई, रबड़ की गोली चलाई गई है, और जिसके कारण पानी का फुहारा भी फेंका गया है, जिसके कारण आपको 100 से ज्यादा युवा घायल हुए हैं, और 3 पत्रकारों को गोली लगी है, और एक युवक की गोली लगी तो उसको हॉस्पिटल ले जाया गया, उसकी डेथ हो गई है।
वीना जी, हमारे साथ बने रहिए, but the update from Veena there is that there could be more than one casualty being reported because of the violence on the streets and the face-off between police officials and the protesters on the ground. Veena जी, अभी सांसद के बाहर ये protesters ने घेरा हुआ है अभी कि नहीं?
नहीं, घेरे हुए नहीं है। वहीं आसपास वो लोग, जो पुलिस, अब तो आर्मी को भी बुला लिया गया है, और कर्फ्यू भी लगा दिया गया है, इसलिए वो तितर बितर हो गए हैं, लेकिन है आसपास नहीं, वहीं आसपास में ही है। ये लोग घर नहीं लौटे हैं और आसपास वहीं पर अपना हंगामा कर रहे हैं।
और अभी कोई अरेस्ट हुए हैं जो आपको पता हो? अरेस्ट हुए हैं? वी नो इंजर्ड है।
काफी लोगों को अरेस्ट किया गया है, सब युवा लोग ही हैं। काफी लोग को अरेस्ट किया गया है, और अब तो आर्मी को भी ऑर्डर दिया गया है कि आने के लिए, जहां पर ये प्रदर्शन हो रहा है वहां पर घेराबंदी करने के लिए।
और इनको कौन सपोर्ट दे रहा है वीना जी? पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, अदर पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज सपोर्ट दे रहे हैं उनको?
नहीं, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी कोई इसमें शामिल नहीं है। ये जेएनजी वाले आपको पता ही है, युवा लोग जो है 25 साल से कम उम्र के वो हैं। और यहाँ का हमारे काठमांडू नगर पालिका के जो मेयर हैं बैलेंस था, वो खुलेआम उसका सपोर्ट किए हैं। कल वो अपने संजाल में, सामाजिक संजाल में एक पर लिख कर अपना ये सपोर्ट किए थे, बोले थे कि लेकिन मैं नेतृत्व में आता, लेकिन मैं एज के कारण मैं नहीं आ सकता हूँ इसमें, लेकिन मेरा पूर्ण सपोर्ट है। और उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि इसको रोकने या बाधित करने का कोई भी दल या सरकार कोशिश न करें, लेकिन इसका परिणाम बुरा होगा। उन्होंने ये कल अपनी वक्तव्य जारी किया था।
गवर्नमेंट से कोई रिस्पॉन्स आया है वीना जी ऑन दीज प्रोटेस्ट?
नहीं, गवर्नमेंट कुछ नहीं बोले। गवर्नमेंट में जो दो मेन पार्टी है, जो नेपाली कांग्रेस और एमआलए के ये भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैं केपी शर्मा ओली, लेकिन जो कांग्रेस जो उसमें बड़ी पार्टी है, सबसे हमारे नेपाल की सबसे बड़ी पार्टी है संसद में, वो उसने इसका विरोध किया है। कल उनके सभापति जो अध्यक्ष हैं, उनके निवास स्थान पर इस संबंध में मैंने विचार विमर्श किया गया। और उसमें भी जो युवा लोग हैं उस पार्टी में, महासचिव हैं, 2 यंग हैं, वो लोगों ने इसका विरोध किया था कि ये जो कार्रवाई हो रही, भ्रष्टाचार तो ठीक है, लेकिन 26 को संजाल, सामाजिक संजाल को जो बंद करने का सरकार ने जो किया था, बंद कर दिया था, उसको खुलवाने के लिए वो लोगों ने बोले थे, आपने सभापति पर की प्रेशर दिए थे कि आप मीटिंग कीजिए प्राइम मिनिस्टर से और इसको खुलवाइए, नहीं तो बहुत खराब प्रभाव पड़ेगा। युवाओं में हमारी पार्टी को लेकर भी इम्प्रेशन खराब पड़ रहा है, आप इस संबंध में मीटिंग कीजिए। तो आज मीटिंग होने वाली थी, लेकिन अभी तक तो कोई सूचना नहीं आई है कि प्रधानमंत्री के साथ बातचीत हुई है कि नहीं हुई है।
वीना जी